Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our first story is a stark reminder of the responsibility pet owners have to educate themselves and prioritize their pet's well-being, despite the absurdity of Karen's actions when it comes to pet care. Karen's dog gets a diabetes diagnosis, and she blames the vet. I'd taken my dog into the vet for a post-surgery follow-up. He'd swallowed a piece of his toy, and it had become lodged in his lower intestine. The surgery went fine, and he's all better now. My vet's office is still only allowing one person in office at a time, so most appointments a tech picks up and drips off the animals from the owner in the parking lot. NBD. I was parked waiting for them to bring my dog out and was sitting on the hood of my car waiting for the tech to help get my dog in my car. Parked next to me is Karen. While I'm waiting, a tech brings her obviously older, very overweight basset hound out to her. Not being judgmental, just giving the facts. She got out of her car to get her dog. We'll call him Roscoe. The vet tech starts telling her that Roscoe's very overweight and they've discovered that he's severely diabetic. They're very concerned due to his age and want to start an aggressive dietary and medication plan for him. He was explaining the issues with his weight and how it can impact the disease when she interrupts. She looks right at the tech and half screams, "Why would you do this to my dog?" Now, I'd been just staring off into the distance during all of this, but my head spun right towards them when she said that. The tech asks what she means by that. She starts on a tirade about how the vet's office infected her sweet Roscoe with this disease, and she demands to know why they would do that. The tech looks flabbergasted, as am I, and he kind of glances over at me to see if I'm hearing this. He tries to explain to her that they absolutely did not give Roscoe diabetes and tries to explain the disease, but she's having none of it. She starts yelling about how she's going to call a lawyer and own them, and if her dog dies, it's on them. I can't sit idly by anymore and say, "Ma'am, you need to stop for a second. I get that you're upset as your pup is sick. However, the vet's office did not give him diabetes. It didn't happen. Please calm down and listen to what this man is trying to tell you." She spins on me and says, "What the hell do you know? Do you have diabetes?" I said, "No, I don't. However, my husband does. So I do know what causes it, what aggravates it, and how it's treated." She then tells me humans can't get diabetes, and even if they could, it wouldn't be the same as dogs. I just stare at this woman and say, "Wow, you really are this crazy." "Ma'am, I'm sorry your dog's sick, but at least for his sake, do what's needed to get him treated for this. It can and will kill him otherwise." She cussed me and the tech out about us not knowing anything, and she looks at Roscoe and says, "I'm taking you for a cheeseburger. They're lying. You aren't overweight, and you don't have diabetes." Wonder how Roscoe got so overweight. The tech begs the woman to please not do that, to at least take time to research the disease, but she tells him to F off, gets in her car, and leaves. I look at the tech and ask if he's okay. He says, "Yeah, but he feels so bad for that dog." I agree with him and say that woman is nuts. He says, "Yeah," and says, "Thanks for standing up for him and Roscoe." By this time, my dog was brought out. I still worry about Roscoe. Poor pup deserves better. And our second story. Passive-aggressive, jealous neighbor. In our early 20s with two young ones, we had a house built. It was our first home. We were the youngest on the street. It was a brand new neighborhood of semi-custom houses, and we quickly made friends with everybody. It was during the housing boom in California around the mid-2000s, and I was a builder/land developer, the youngest in the company. So as you can imagine, before the financial crisis, I was making a ton of money. Gary and his wife lived across the street. We were friends, and I would often help him with projects, etc. at his house. They were 15 years older and had no children. While having a beer or just shooting the crap, he started making comments. He would say things like, "Must be nice to buy a new house and new vehicles at your age. We had to wait and save and rent before we could buy new. We had to really work for what we have." As if I wasn't working hard. His comments and attitude got worse when I bought a new wakeboard boat and parked it in my driveway. I had the concrete poured to make the space, keeping it off the street. He became crabby and we drifted apart. Fast forward a few years, I'm still doing well for myself. I bought another truck, the kind Gary told me was his dream, and fifth-wheel toy hauler trailer. It was huge, 42 feet. Santa brought four-wheelers for me and the kids, also a side-by-side for my wife. Toys went in the garage, and I got a storage facility for the trailer. I'd bring the trailer home Thursday night so my wife could load food and clothes Friday. We went to the beach most weekends, returning on Sunday nights, parking in front of my house. Monday, she'd empty the fridge and clean the inside. After work, I'd clean the toys and put them in the garage, then wash the salty sand off and return the trailer to storage, if I had time. It was a lot of work, and sometimes I couldn't get it done until Tuesday. Nobody complained or ever said a word, but I started getting tickets on Monday saying I had 72 hours to move the trailer. This was a pain. Those tickets are stuck to the trailer and damn near impossible to get off. Frustrated, knowing I've never even left it there for more than 2 days, I asked around the neighborhood and everyone said it was no bother. Someone was being passive-aggressive and secretly causing me trouble. Who the hell was it? I called a cop friend of mine who looked the tickets up on his computer and told me it was Gary making the calls. Now I'm pissed. It's time to get petty. I sat down at my computer one night with a case of beer, spent hours and hours online. Wife said it was 14, signing Gary up for every free publication I could find. I flooded his mailbox with so many newsletters and junk, everything from Boy Scouts to farming to retirement to alternative lifestyle. I even spent money buying subscriptions for male nudie magazines. Not quite satisfied with what I'd done, I decided to get even more petty and publicly shame him while giving him something to look at every single day. The one thing that annoyed him and started it all. I parked my fifth wheel in front of my house for 72 hours, then moved it to storage, parking my boat in its place. When it was time to move the boat, I picked up my horse trailer from the stables and parked that in its place. I rotated all three of these eyesores every 72 hours. I must have done this for a couple months. It was really inconvenient for me, but oh so worth it. Now for the best part. On the side facing Gary, I posted a sign. It was a big black poster board with neon letters that read, "Hey Gary, you're such a..." And then it added a large picture of a donkey's butt. I stuck it on the fifth wheel, the boat, and horse trailer each and every time. Neighbors up and down the street came to tell me how great they thought this was and shared their own stories of how Gary pissed them off. No harm done, nothing hurtful or dangerous, just some good old petty revenge to make me feel better. Holy cow, you are the king of petty. I bow at your feet. Extremely well played. Check and checkmate. And our last story. I have recently come into the possession of a 1947 International pickup truck. A monster of a four-wheel drive that looks fantastic now that I've cleaned it up and changed the fluids, even has the original Black Diamond inline six-cylinder engine. Not bad for a barn find. Gorgeous old truck and very desirable as I've come to find out. Now that it's all legal, I've begun driving it regularly and often find myself getting waved and honked at and even asked to pull over a couple times so someone could have a look at it. I'm constantly getting offers for it as well. It's not for sale, never will be. It's my most treasured possession already, and I plan on showing it off at different truck rallies and get-togethers. This incident took place at a local gas station / convenience store. It had started off pretty much a normal day. I've gotten used to the honks and staring already, nothing unusual when you own an unusual vehicle to me. I pulled into a local 7-Eleven to get gas and a snack. Hadn't had breakfast yet that day and went in, got myself a breakfast burrito and paid for gas, and when I stepped out and made my way back to my truck, I found some teenager sitting behind the wheel of my truck, looking as if he was trying to drive it. I yelled before I got to my truck for the kid to get out. It's not his truck. When I got to it, he still hadn't moved and said, "This truck is so cool. Want to sell it?" "It's not for sale, kid. Now get out before I yank you out of it." "But everything's for sale, and I want it." "You're not getting it, and it isn't for sale." And opened the door, at which the kid suddenly bolted and ran off. Kids these days, I muttered to myself, thinking the matter was over. Boy, was I wrong. I just filled the tank and went back and got my change, taking time to lock the doors this time before going back in and coming back out. When I got back to my truck, there stood the kid with an adult next to him. He said, "My son wants this truck. Hand it over now." Not gonna happen. And if you don't back off from the truck you're not getting, I'm calling the sheriff and making you back off. "You're giving us that truck or we're taking it." I simply pulled out my cell phone and started dialing the non-emergency number, at which point the man went white and said, "Hey now, I was just kidding. You want to sell it?" I told him already, pointing at the kid, it's not for sale and won't be. Now I suggest you be gone before the sheriff arrives. They were suddenly gone. But that isn't the end of the matter yet. The sheriff arrived, I described the incident to him, and they checked the security cameras outside of the store, but there wasn't much they could do without having seen the incident or having witnesses willing to talk to them. So I went about my day, doing some shopping at the local Wally World and stopping at a local specialty parts shop to order some parts for the truck that specializes in classic and antique vehicles, and headed home. I got home, and for a few hours everything was fine. I had, however, parked my truck in a secured garage on my property, as I usually do, to keep the truck out of the weather, and considering what happened earlier, good thing too, because as I found out, these two were not done trying to get my truck. Late that evening, just as I hit the bed, I heard some unusual noises around the garage, looked out and saw two figures prowling about the garage, first trying a security window, then trying to pull the garage doors open. So I snuck out my back door with shotgun in hand, rounds loaded with rock salt and pork rinds. Very painful, but not deadly unless near point-blank range. I load my own shotgun and rifle rounds. Briefly, rock salt, when forced into the skin, produces an intense burning sensation, and pork rinds glue themselves to human flesh as if superglued to it and must be forcibly peeled away without the appropriate solvents. Extremely painful either way. Next thing these two heard was a ka-chunk of a shotgun's round being loaded into a shotgun chamber and froze. Then a quiet but firm voice, "On the ground now, both of you." Shortly, both were on their faces, hands behind the back of their head, and they lay there until the sheriff arrived. Sheriff arrived, I lay my shotgun aside as they demanded, and accepted being cuffed for the time being. They yanked the two off the ground, none too gently, and pulled them over to the cruiser they arrived in. They questioned me and took the cuffs off after taking possession of the shotgun temporarily, and questioned them separately. I told my side of it, making special note that I believe they were after my antique truck, and told them of the earlier incidences that day. They had the unmitigated gall to claim I had stole their old truck and had it stashed in the garage, and they were just trying to get it back. When I produced the title and registration of the truck and even let them into the garage so they could run the plates, all came back as registered to me and me alone. I had the fun of giving these two a brilliant smile and a wave goodbye as they were driven off and taken to jail. I got my shotgun back after proving it was mine and having to reclaim it from the department, but no big deal. They're still in jail at this point, charged with trespass, attempted theft, attempted auto theft, and several other charges. I was there for their initial appearance, and when the judge asked if there was any objection to them being OR'd, I of course objected. Yes, I was being vindictive. I stated they wanted my truck so badly they snuck onto my property at night to try and steal it. I fear if they're released, they'll try again. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.